I found out my dad stole 80 grand from me during a housewarming party I wasn't even supposed to attend. I'm Nina. I'm 27. I live in Pittsburgh, and technically, I've been crashing in my cousin's spare room for the past 2 years. That's what my dad tells people. Nina's just figuring things out, he'll say with a smirk. But what he doesn't tell them is that I've been covering half the mortgage on that house, quietly, every month, just so I wouldn't end up sleeping in my car. It's not even my name on the lease. Or the deed. It never was. The arrangement was supposed to be temporary. That's what my cousin Mark told me when I moved in after my breakup. Just pitch in with the bills and we're good, he said. At first, it made sense. I was working 2 freelance design gigs and trying to save up. But when I offered to pay rent, he said, "Nah, just split the mortgage with me. It's better for both of us." That should have been my first red flag, because Mark didn't buy this house by himself. But I didn't question it. I was tired, broke, and just grateful to have a roof. Fast forward to last weekend. Mark and his fiancée threw a housewarming party. New paint, new floors, fancy furniture. I wasn't even planning to stay long. I brought a bottle of wine and figured I'd sneak out before the real family showed up. But then my dad walked in. He wasn't supposed to be there. He lives in Florida now with his second wife, and I haven't seen him since my mom's funeral 3 years ago. We made awkward eye contact. He gave me that fake, "how's my girl" smile, the one that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Dinner was catered. Tables were set up in the backyard with those rented heaters and string lights. It looked like something out of a Pottery Barn catalog. Everyone was laughing, clinking glasses, catching up. Then my grandfather stood up to give a toast. "Tonight's not just about Mark and Lily," he said, voice shaking slightly from age. "It's also about Nina. I'm proud of both of them, and I'm so glad I could help get this house started for the family." Silence. I was mid-sip of warm sangria, and I choked. Full-on cough-through-your-nose choke. People turned. Someone laughed, thinking maybe Grandpa had just mixed names. He kept going. I remember wiring the money like it was yesterday. Helped them close the deal fast. Young people need a hand sometimes. I stared at him, blinking. My heart started pounding. Mark's face froze. My dad looked away, suddenly fascinated by the candle centerpiece. I stood up slowly. "What money?" That was the first time the party went completely quiet. Forks froze. Glasses hovered midair. My grandpa looked confused. "The money I sent your dad, for you and Mark to get settled. He said you two were buying this house together." I laughed. Not the funny kind. The kind that breaks in the middle like glass. "Grandpa, I don't own this house. I'm not even on the lease. I've been paying half the mortgage, but it's Mark's name on everything." My dad spoke up too fast. "Nina, let's not do this here." "Do what?" I turned to him. "Tell the truth?" Mark stood up, pale as a napkin. "I thought you knew. Your dad said it was a gift for both of you. He showed me an email." "What email?" "I don't know. Something about you not wanting your name on it because of your credit." I couldn't feel my hands. I looked back at my grandfather. His mouth was open slightly, stunned. "You never saw the house, did you?" He shook his head. "Your dad said you wanted privacy, that you were doing well, that you'd thanked him already." I stepped back, heart thudding. I never got a dime. I've been working 60-hour weeks to pay into a house that's not mine, that I thought we split. My dad started walking toward me. I raised my voice. "Don't." Everyone stared. And then my cousin's fiancé, quiet, polite, almost invisible until then, looked right at my dad and said, "You told us she begged you not to involve her in the mortgage because she's bad with money. You said she blew her last apartment deposit on designer pillows." I felt the whole world tilt sideways. I looked at my dad, and he said nothing. Just put his drink down and walked inside the house. I turned to Grandpa, my voice like sandpaper. "You sent him money?" $80,000, he said softly. "I thought he gave it to you." I didn't move. I just whispered, He didn't. And right then, Grandpa said the 6 words that changed everything. "Show me where you really live." I didn't answer right away. I just stood there in the backyard, heels digging into the wet grass, wine glass still in my hand. Like if I moved, the whole lie would collapse on top of me. "Show me where you really live," Grandpa had said, and something in his voice stopped me cold. It wasn't pity. It wasn't anger. It was quiet and sharp, like he'd just realized he'd been played. So I nodded. We left the party without saying another word. I didn't even grab my jacket. My dad didn't come back outside. Mark didn't follow. Everyone else just sort of faded. I think they knew not to speak. I drove. Grandpa sat beside me in the passenger seat of my rusty Civic, hands clasped, staring out the window like he was trying to rewind the last 5 years in his head. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. I think he was afraid of what the answers might be. It was a 20-minute drive back to my place. Not the house. My real place. The one I never showed family. The one I kept hidden like a bad secret. I pulled into the alley behind the duplex and killed the engine. For a second, I didn't move. I just stared at the dim yellow light spilling from the side door. A broken porch step. Trash bags piled up beside the dumpster that always smelled like old grease. "This is it," I said, my voice hoarse. Grandpa didn't speak. He followed me down the cracked concrete steps to the basement unit I'd been renting off a woman named Dolores, who smoked so much the walls had a permanent haze. The place smelled like wet carpet and fried onions. It always did. I unlocked the door and pushed it open. "Welcome to my slice of the American dream," I said. The room was small, low ceiling, one window that faced a wall. My bed was a fold-out couch with a blanket that didn't match. My desk was a piece of plywood on top of 2 milk crates. There were Post-it notes all over the walls, design sketches, color palettes, to-do lists I never got to. Grandpa stepped inside slowly, took everything in. His eyes didn't move fast. He looked at my chipped coffee mug, the laundry machine 3 feet from my bed, the cheap lamp duct-taped at the base to keep it from wobbling. "You've been living here?" he asked finally. "Yeah, since the pandemic hit." "I thought you were in that condo your dad mentioned." I laughed once. Just once. "Yeah, he told me I wasn't responsible enough for a mortgage. Said I should learn how to make do first. Said it'd build character." Grandpa turned around and stared at me. And I swear I hadn't seen that look on his face since Grandma's funeral. Like something inside him had cracked and let the cold in. "I wired that money for you," he said quietly. $80,000. I thought. I believed him when he said it went toward your future. He even showed me some photos of you outside a building downtown. "Photos?" I looked up. "What building?" He paused. "I don't know. He said it was your new place. You were smiling. Looked like you were holding keys." I felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. "I never held keys," I said slowly, "and I never saw any photos." The silence between us suddenly went razor sharp. He reached for his phone, scrolled with shaking fingers, found a folder, tapped. There it was. A photo of me. From 2 years ago. Outside an apartment complex I once toured but never applied to. I was smiling, mid-laugh. I had posted that picture on Instagram with the caption, "Dreaming big." "That's what he sent me," Grandpa whispered. "Said it was the day you moved in. He asked me not to mention it directly, so it would be a surprise." I backed up and sat down hard on the edge of my sad excuse for a bed. He used my post to fake a home. We sat in silence for a full minute. I could hear the fridge humming, the distant upstairs TV, and my own heartbeat, thudding. Then Grandpa stood, calm, still. "I want to see the bank records. I don't have access to his—" "I do," he said, cutting me off. "I gave him power of attorney for some of my accounts. I'm calling my attorney tomorrow." He looked around again, At the single frying pan on my stove, at my stacked design books collecting dust. "He didn't just lie to you, Nina," Grandpa said. "He lied to me, too." Then he looked me right in the eye. And I don't forgive liars. That's when I realized this wasn't just a family issue anymore. It was about to become a legal one. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just lay there on the pullout, staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows shift as cars passed by the alley. Grandpa had taken an Uber back to his hotel around midnight, but not before saying the one thing that stuck with me like a splinter under my skin. "This ends with the truth, Nina. No matter what it costs." By morning, he had already sent me a text with an address and a time. "Meet me at the bank. Bring ID." That was it. No emojis, no punctuation. Just purpose. The bank was one of those old buildings downtown with marble floors and a front desk that looked more like a hotel concierge than a place that handled your overdraft fees. I wore the same jeans I'd worn to the party. They still smelled faintly like burnt meat and betrayal. Grandpa was already waiting in the lobby when I got there. He looked different. Not angry exactly. Just focused. Like something had snapped into place overnight. We sat down with a banker named Elise. She wore a crisp blue blazer and had the kind of neutral smile that said she had definitely seen families tear each other apart over money before. "I just need to review any recent transfers made from my account ending in 0924. Grandpa said calmly, placing his ID on the desk. Specifically anything labeled as a gift or referencing real estate. Elise tapped on her keyboard for what felt like forever, then blinked. "Yes, there's a record here," she said. "An $80,000 wire transfer from your account to a Daniel R. Callahan. Description says, for Nina's condo purchase. Dated 2 years ago, almost to the day." She turned the screen slightly toward us. I saw the date, the name, the memo. My stomach twisted. "Can you see what happened to the funds after that?" Grandpa asked. She clicked again. Her eyebrows tightened. "Yes. 5 days later, Mr. Callahan transferred the full amount into an account labeled Callahan Growth Holdings. It's a private investment portfolio." I stared at her. "No mention of me?" She shook her head. "No, ma'am. None." Grandpa didn't move. He just said, "Print everything." We waited in silence as the printer buzzed. Elise handed us the documents neatly clipped together. Grandpa flipped through them slowly, then stopped. "This one," he said, holding up a page. "That's not my signature." I leaned in. The signature on the transfer form wasn't quite right. The curl on the R was off. Too smooth. The date was written in my dad's handwriting. I knew it. I'd seen him fill out school forms my whole life. Grandpa exhaled through his nose. He forged it. My mouth went dry. Elise's smile vanished. "Would you like to speak to our fraud division?" "Yes," Grandpa said, standing. "Right now." And that's when I realized this wasn't just a personal betrayal anymore. This was criminal. After the meeting, we didn't talk much in the car. Grandpa drove this time. His hands were steady on the wheel, but his jaw was clenched tight. I think he was holding something in. Rage, guilt, maybe both. Back at his place, he handed me a thick manila folder with all the documents. "This is yours. In case anything happens, you hold on to this." "I don't even know what to do with it," I said. "You'll know when the time comes." I sat on his porch for a while after he went inside, watching the wind move through the tall grass by the fence, trying to make sense of what came next. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out all the things I used to believe about my family and left me with a copy of my own bank fraud report. That night, I cooked dinner for the two of us. Just spaghetti and garlic bread. Nothing fancy. He didn't say much while we ate, but when we were done, he pushed his plate back and looked me dead in the eye. "I need you to be honest with me," he said, "about everything." I nodded slowly. "Okay. Did your father ever tell you about the trust?" I blinked. "What trust?" He frowned. He told me he transferred it into your name 3 years ago, that he wanted you to have control over it before you turned 30. My blood ran cold. Grandpa, I whispered. I never even knew there was a trust. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, quietly, he said, he emptied it 6 months ago. I checked last week just to make sure it was still in your name. The silence between us turned electric. How much? I asked. His voice was gravel. 250,000. I couldn't breathe. That's when I realized the toast at that damn party was never about the house. It was a cover for the final piece of money he stole from me. I didn't speak on the ride to my parents' house. Grandpa didn't either. The folder with the bank statement sat on my lap like a loaded weapon, edges digging into my palms. I kept thinking about the trust. The fact that it was real, that it had been drained, that for 3 years I had been eating dollar store pasta while my dad invested in God knows what with money meant for me. He parked in the driveway like he still owned the place. Maybe a part of him still felt like he did. The white paint on the porch was peeling. The wind chime Mom had since I was 10 clinked like nothing had changed. But everything had. I took a breath, stepped out of the car, and followed Grandpa to the door. Dad opened it in a t-shirt like he'd just woken up from a nap. His eyes darted from Grandpa to me, then to the folder in my hands. He didn't invite us in, just said, "Now's not really a good time." Grandpa didn't blink. "You should sit down." Dad laughed. "Is this another one of your big lectures?" But then he saw my face, and something shifted. The cocky smirk faded. Mom appeared behind him in the hallway, drying her hands on a dish towel. Her smile died the second she saw Grandpa's expression. 5 minutes later, we were all in the living room. Same sagging couch, same crooked family photos. Only this time, there was no pretending. The silence was thick. Grandpa placed the folder on the coffee table and flipped it open. Each page landed like a slap. $80,000, he said, not looking up. Transferred under the pretense of helping Nina buy a condo. Redirected into your private investment account. Dad shifted. It wasn't like that. Don't, I snapped. Just don't lie again. He opened his mouth but didn't speak. Grandpa kept going. And then there's the trust. 250,000. Transferred to Nina in name. Withdrawn entirely within 6 months. No authorization, no notification. Mom stared at him like she didn't recognize the man she married. "Daniel," she said, barely audible. "You told me she refused the money, that she didn't want to be controlled." He scoffed. "I was trying to protect her." My voice cracked. "From what? Stability?" "You're impulsive," he fired back. "You would have wasted it." "No," Grandpa said, his tone like stone. "You wasted it." Dad stood suddenly, like he could walk away from the confrontation. I was managing it. "For her, then why didn't I know about it?" I said. "Why did you let me live in a basement while you played stockbroker with my future?" The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It buzzed, hummed. I felt it in my teeth. Mom sat down hard on the armrest, shaking her head. "I can't believe this. All those times I asked if we should help her, and you told me she wanted to be independent." "I did," he muttered. "I just didn't think she'd last this long." That did it. Grandpa stood. "You're done, Daniel. You're off everything. Every asset. Every account. My lawyer's been informed. You'll pay her back every cent. Publicly. And I'm going to make sure the rest of the family knows what you did." Dad opened his mouth, but the words died in his throat. "And one more thing," Grandpa added, calmer now. "You'll sign a statement of full admission. No games." I didn't speak. I couldn't. I was watching the man who told me I was too soft for the real world unravel in real time. But the moment that really broke me, it was when my little sister Abby crept halfway down the stairs. I hadn't even noticed her there. She looked like she'd been listening for a while. Her voice was small. "Dad," she said, "is that why my college fund disappeared?" The whole room stopped. Dad turned pale. "What are you talking about?" Grandpa asked, turning toward her. Abby walked down slowly. "I was supposed to have $30,000 left for tuition. Mom kept saying the statements got confusing after the market dropped. But I asked the advisor last week. There's nothing, not even a record." My chest locked up. He hadn't just stolen from me. He stole from both of us. Grandpa looked like the air had been knocked out of him. And I realized the worst part wasn't that he betrayed me. It was that he didn't stop at one daughter. After that night, everything moved fast. Grandpa's lawyer filed the paperwork the next morning. Full revocation of financial rights, emergency audit requests, and a fraud complaint tied to both the trust and the forged wire transfer. It was cold, precise. Like Grandpa had been preparing for this moment longer than I knew. Mom didn't say much in the days that followed. I think she was grieving more than just her marriage. Maybe the version of Dad she'd clung to for too long. Abby, meanwhile, stayed in my room that night. She cried once, then asked if she could borrow one of my old hoodies. I think that was her way of saying I see you now. The fallout came 2 weeks later at Sunday brunch. Same restaurant, same big family table. But this time, Grandpa was the one who called it. No birthdays, no celebrations. Just a reckoning. He stood before the food even arrived, cleared his throat, and held up a document. Not dramatic, just firm. "I owe you all an apology," he began. 2 years ago, I trusted someone with my resources because I believed he was looking after his daughter. I was wrong. He laid out every fact. The forged signature, the misused trust, the fake story about me refusing help. He even mentioned Abby's missing college fund. You could feel the air drop 10 degrees. Dad sat across the table, staring down at his water glass like he could drown in it. Mom didn't sit next to him. She brought her own car. Grandpa finished calmly. "From this point forward, Daniel Callahan will have no access to family funds, trusts, or representation. Any restitution owed will be processed legally. If he does not comply, I will pursue criminal charges." Someone at the far end of the table actually dropped their fork. Then Grandpa turned to me. "Nina will be living with me temporarily, until we find a home she deserves, not the one she was manipulated into." I don't know what hit harder, his words or the way the room just accepted them. No more pretending, no awkward excuses, just truth laid bare. Dad didn't speak until the very end. He stood, hands shaking, and muttered, "I did what I thought was best." And for the first time, I looked him in the eye and said, "No, you did what was easiest. For you." He left without finishing his drink. That was the last time I saw him. Not long after, Grandpa and I moved into a quiet 2-bedroom apartment in Shadyside. Nothing fancy, but it had real sunlight, hardwood floors, and more peace than I'd known in years. We ate breakfast together most mornings. He started asking about my old designs, said I should stop hiding them and start building something. So I did. I launched a small interior design site with what I had. Grandpa helped me get a business license and introduced me to a friend of his who worked in affordable housing. One conversation turned into a project, a community space for single moms. Then another call, a low-income apartment redesign. People wanted creative solutions, small space transformations, and I knew exactly how to make the most of a cramped basement. It wasn't just work, it was healing. A few months in, I hosted brunch. Not for show, just for the people who stayed. Abby helped me cook. Grandpa brought fresh flowers. My cousin Mark showed up early and apologized, really apologized, for not asking more questions. He didn't have to, but he did. There were no speeches, just laughter, real warmth. A kitchen that smelled like garlic bread and basil, and sunlight pouring through windows I could finally call mine. At one point, I caught Grandpa watching me, hands folded over his coffee, eyes soft. "This," he said quietly. "This is what I imagined." I smiled. Me too. What I've learned is that silence can protect people or it can bury them. I stayed quiet for years because I thought I was being strong. But real strength is knowing when to speak, especially when no one wants you to. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you, I hope you know you're not alone. And if you found a way to take back your power, even just a little, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Thanks for listening to mine. And if you want to stick around for more real stories like this, feel free to subscribe. I've got a few more scars I'm finally ready to show.